Hello and welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today we welcome back to the show film composer Michael Giacchino, here to discuss his latest score for the Fantastic Four: First Steps. This is Michael's fourth appearance on our podcast. He joined us for the making of Werewolf by Night, which he also directed, and before that for our episodes about the sound and music of The Batman and War for the Planet of the Apes, both along with his longtime collaborator, director Matt Reeves. We'll have links to those past episodes in our show notes if you'd like to check them out. Michael is always a fantastic guest. But for now, here to discuss Michael's latest superhero score is our regular guest host, Jon Burlingame. I will let Jon and Michael take it from here.
We're thrilled to have as our guest the Oscar, Emmy, and Grammy-winning composer of Fantastic Four: First Steps, the latest Marvel blockbuster. He scored everything from Pixar's The Incredibles, Ratatouille, and Up, to films in the Star Trek, Mission Impossible, Planet of the Apes, and Jurassic World series, not to mention The Batman and all of the music from TV's Lost. Welcome, Michael Giacchino.
Hey, how are you doing, Jon?
Thanks for being with us.
Oh, happy to be here.
Is this your seventh film for Marvel?
Oh, you're going to make me do math. Okay. Let's see. There's Doctor Strange. There's 3 Spider-Man movies. There is Thor. There is Werewolf by Night.
Which you also directed.
Which I also directed. And there is Fantastic Four. Yes, I believe that is it.
How do you decide which...
I guess the Marvel logo, I don't know if that counts as one.
I think the Marvel logo is one of the best things you've ever done. So, yeah, that counts. How do you decide which hero to take on?
I did have early talks with Kevin back in the day about things like Captain America and Avengers. And I was... At the time that Captain America was there, I was busy on some other things, so that didn't work out, which was sort of sad. One of my great regrets. I usually say I don't have many regrets. That's one of them. And then we talked about Avengers, and I think for me at the time, I also had a lot going on, and I was also a little worried about there's so many characters in that. I don't know if I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I don't know what it was. But when he came to me with Doctor Strange, I was like, yes, one name in the title. I like it. That's it. One guy. So I tend to like the ones that are about a particular character, At least that's how I started easing into this whole thing, was with that. And then again with Spider-Man. And of course, Spider-Man I love. So they started off that way and then started branching.
And when you say Kevin, you mean Kevin Feige?
Yes, Kevin Feige, yes.
Who is the head of Marvel Studios.
Yes, he is.
So what about the Fantastic Four? Did you read the comics? Were you familiar with them as a hero group?
Oh, absolutely. I still have my Mego action figures. I still have my comic books, the ones that survived, I still have from that. So they were absolutely a part of my childhood. And I remember running around the yard with those action figures. And, those were those 8-inch really cool Mego figures that were across the board on all things pop culture at the time in terms of superheroes and movies and things like that. So I had the Human Torch, I had Sue, I had Mr. Reed, and I had the Thing. And my brother and I would just play with them out in the backyard. And those ones are beaten pretty much to nothing. So all of them are sort of have devolved in some sort of way, the ones that have survived over the years. But those ones are beaten up pretty bad. And but I do have a huge and fond memory of the Fantastic Four from my childhood. And I think because there was something about them that was sort of rooted in this time period that I was also fascinated with as a kid, which is the whole era of NASA and what that meant to be an adventurer and a scientist. This idea that you could be both things at once. It wasn't just this idea that you're either like the jock that is flying the ship or you're the guy that is running the numbers down at mission control. Fantastic Four kind of put them in the place of put a foot in each world, which I loved for all of them. And, seeing them work together as a team, that was always the best part of it.
So when it came to the movie, is it possible to say what you needed to convey musically?
I mean, if I were going off of just my childhood memories, there's a bit of that NASA thing that I mentioned earlier that has always been a part of my feelings for the Fantastic Four. But what happened was when I read this script for the very first time and was talking to Matt Shackman about it, and he was showing me images and different things, I was like, I was getting such a feeling of this beautiful sense of hope and optimism out of these images and out of the way he was painting this as a movie about a family. You know, it really wasn't a movie about high stakes in the world, even though that's part of the film and the story. The movie itself is about a family. It's a family drama, you know, and all of the problems that creep up in the film are ones that affect the relationships between each and every one of them and how they talk to each other, how they work together. So with that sense of hope and optimism and with that sense of this NASA thing, all I could think of in my head was like, if I took the right stuff and if I took the Disneyland Electric Light Parade and smashed them together, you know, and I felt like if we do that, that's going to give us our Fantastic Four music, you know? And so I literally went right to town over a year ago on this theme, which is something you never, ever get to do as a composer. It's so rare that you get to write a piece of music so early on.
So was it even before shooting?
Oh, yeah. It was it was right before they started shooting. We were talking about, Kevin came to me and said, hey, we're doing a big thing at Comic-Con. Would you be interested in writing, you know, the theme early for this thing? And I was like, yes. Because I had already had it running in my head. And I was thinking, I got to wait a year to do this, you know, because I so really just wanted to jump in and get moving on it. And when he brought that to me, I was like, this is the perfect opportunity for us to like road test this. What does this feel like? And I remember writing it and thinking, even to myself, whoa, this feel like I was surprising myself in a way with how it came out, with how positive it was, how buoyant it was, and how it almost has, in a way, like a dance beat to it, which is like kind of crazy. And I was kind of afraid to show it to them because I wasn't sure, like, is this going to like freak them out? Is this going to make them go, what are you doing? Because, you know, these kinds of movies are typically full of very angsty scores, lots of things like they're rarely do you see them in this very major key way, which is promoting the type of emotions and optimism that I was certainly, you know, pushing in this idea. But when they heard it, they absolutely, they loved it and they felt the same way. And I think we all were hoping to create something that had a bit of hope and a bit of optimism in it.
What's interesting about that theme is that we not only hear Fantastic Four in what the musicians are playing, but there's a choir singing the words at the same time, which I thought was an awfully bold choice.
Well, that was like, so if you thought I was afraid to show them the mock-up with just that style of music that I was doing, when it came down to recording the piece and getting the idea, I had this idea. I was like, well, because that dun, 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 you know, like the very end of the melody literally is Fantastic Four. And that was very intentional. And I did that just as a way to kind of get my hands around the theme. But when we had the choir there and I was thinking, oh, I think we might have them just sing the words. Why not just do it for fun, right? Let's just see how it sounds. And I did it and I heard it and I thought to myself, oh my God, I love this. Like, I personally loved it, but I was also terrified to show them because they would be like, okay, you've gone too far, I think. And even when I told Kevin about it early on, I remember his reaction at first was like, kind of like, I don't know if I'll listen, but I don't know. But then as soon as he heard it, as soon as Matt heard it, as soon as everyone there was like, oh, like it was undeniable. It couldn't be anything other than that. And everyone just embraced it the second they found it. So this idea, which is really what the thing that made me so happy was something that was in the storyline of Ratatouille. This idea of embracing the new as opposed to shutting it down. We are so prone to just shutting down new ideas and new things. We want what worked before, right? So to see both Matt Shackman and Kevin Feige and everyone else on the team so wholeheartedly embrace this crazy idea, it made me very happy. It was really one of the most fun parts of the whole evolution of the music.
I wondered if it had something to do with the 60s and the kind of retro feel, because you also have the choir going bum, 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 and dun, 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 which struck me.
And you know where that all came out of?
Yes,
that
please.
all came out of like, Frank Comstock.
Of course.
Right? An incredible composer.
Used to work on Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yes, also One Adam 12.
Adam 12, that's right.
That theme he wrote, which is one of my favorite themes. But he also had these weird concept albums. If you dig deep into his work, he also put out a couple of crazy space age albums. Now, the 60s were the absolute best time for this kind of craziness because stereo was coming into fashion. Right. So they were trying to create all kinds of music to push onto the consumers to show them what stereo can be like. So you got the craziest variety of albums being put out into the world, including things that had like weird synth sounds, had choirs doing da 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 da, like all of these kinds of fun things. And I grew up with that, and I absolutely love that music so much. So yes, that was another big influence, was just the experimental side of the 60s in terms of what the music could be. And I remember listening to this one Frank Comstock album, just hearing this different vocalizations in it, and I was thinking, oh yeah, that has to be part of what we're doing here, So again, yes, I just went full bore on that as well, and getting the choir and feeling, when you hear them doing that bum bum, like there's something so emotional and raw about it. Like I don't know how that could exist without it. I don't know how this theme exists without that. There's such a human element to doing that.
And it's also just fun. I think it's fun to listen to.
It's totally fun. And that's the whole thing. We just wanted to make a movie that was fun. It's not to say we didn't want a movie that didn't have stakes. Of course, you always need that. You want the storytelling to be correct. But I think overall, in terms of what Matt was trying to put forward, was a fun movie about family.
Yeah.
And so it felt like we had the bandwidth to go a little crazier with what we were doing musically than we normally would do on a film like this. And at every step of the way, it seemed to sort of support it. Now, there were times where I felt like, okay, maybe we went a little far here, and I pull it back, So you don't know until you know sometimes, And so there was a lot of, where I was sort of gauging tone throughout, and I would try things and then go, no, I'm not going to go that far. I'll pull it back. So it was a lot of, turning the dial back and forth to just make sure it was always in the perfect reception range for what we were doing, which was difficult.
This is a big orchestra and a big choir, right?
Yeah, we had a 100-piece orchestra and we had a 101-piece orchestra and a 100-person choir. Yes.
That's pretty impressive, but you also have some synthesizers here and
there's a
fairly
bunch
unique
of synths
sounds
in there. Yes, there was a lot of fun getting in there and creating some of the sounds for the synths and figuring out how that was all going to play inside of, again, this film. You don't want it to overtake what's important about the story or the characters. How far can you push it so that it still just remains part of the movie that people don't even necessarily notice when they're watching it? It's just part of the fabric of the whole thing. So the synths, the choir, the orchestra, there's some bizarre percussion stuff. It was just like this really fun sort of no man's land in terms of what we were doing. No idea was too weird.
And just to nerd out for a second, I heard that one of the synths was actually an ARP 2600.
Yes, there's an ARP 2600.
No one has used in 30 years.
Yeah, they're really unwieldy. But the other thing that we used in the movie, which I was even more excited about, was the farfisa. At the very end, when they're putting the car seat into the car, there's a farfisa playing along with that music there, going to town on the solo. So,
which is a period organ, right?
Yes, yeah, and it has this really sort of nasally, high-pitched thing, and it's just a great sound. It's so great. So, at the scoring sessions, just looking out and watching the guy play the actual farfisa, that was really, really, really fun.
You were talking about family a second ago, and one of the other things that's, I think, again, tremendously unusual about this as a comic book movie is how much of the story revolves around a pregnancy, having a child, and the fact that Reed and Sue's little boy actually becomes a major plot point in the film. How did you deal with that?
I think, one of the things you got to remember, I think Matt Shakman did such a wonderful job at navigating tone in this, right? This is a movie that could so easily turn into silliness. I mean, look, we're talking about a movie about a stretchy guy, a rock guy, an invisible lady, and a guy on fire. So, I mean, right off the bat, you're in nutso zone, right? So, so how do you ground that? Well, one of the ways to ground that is to give them true human traits and have them go through true human things. And one of those things is having a baby, and what does the baby do to the family? I love how he, she's promising him in the beginning, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change. And we all know everything changes, once that happens. And even if you have friends that have kids, even if you don't have kids and you have friends that have that, you notice the changes. So they do come in with a lot of change. And I think tracking those changes, watching what happened to the family as the baby is born and brought into their world, I think that's what grounds everything. That's what allows you to have the craziness of what these characters are. Because if you think about it, when you're watching the movie, it's so rare that it's the powers of the characters that are the focus. It's more the emotions of the characters that are the focus. It's the problems of the characters that are the focus. It's their feelings that are the focus. And then underneath that, you get the crazy stuff. So as long as you're grounding it with that, I think you have a chance at telling a story with these characters. And you can kind of go backtrack and see why it's been so difficult over the years to do that.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have what may be the most powerful villain in all of comic book history, Galactus, this virtually all-powerful being that destroys worlds without a second thought. How did you depict him musically?
For him, I wanted what amounted to a giant steamroller or a massive Zamboni, both with no driver, and it's just going, right? And there's not stopping. It's not interested in necessarily what's in front of it, other than the fact that if you're there, it will eat it. And it's because it's driven by this eternal hunger, right? It's going to keep going. There is no end to Galactus's theme. It's just something that can keep circling on itself every single time. And I wanted that idea of this unstoppable force. So you have this da 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 that just kind of keeps going and going. And there's minor variations of it, but it's essentially just this idea that keeps hammering home. Here I come. Here I come. I'm not stopping and I'm not changing either. That's the other thing, just illustrating a character that's not going to change. It's not going to bend to your will, and it's not going to compromise. And so I felt like, choir, and there's some Latin in there, and the Latin is talking about the eternal hunger. It's talking about the hunger for planets, the hunger for worlds, that there is no end to all of this. And so that's sort of woven in there too with the choir. And it's very subtle and subliminal in some ways, but it's there. And then the Silver Surfer.
Oh, man, this is what I really wanted to get to. One of the most unique characters in all of comic books.
Yeah.
The creation of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby way back in the 60s.
Yep.
Did she have her own sound, her own theme?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. She's a villain, right? For the most part in this movie, that's how she's treated. And yet at the same time, not a villain by choice, not a villain by choice, a villain through circumstance and through sacrificing and through, events that happened long ago that she had no control over. So I wanted her theme to be more filled out, to be more emotional, and if they just hear it, it was written on the piano first, just this very simple, these chords that are playing and repeating and evolving. And I just wanted this feeling of sadness in this. It was so important for me to have that you could then turn on its head and do in a huge, angry, gothic way as well, when you needed the sort of like, okay, now I'm pissed version of the surfer. But the truth is, the real surfer, it has an emotional core that has just been sealed up for millennia because of the job that she decided to take or was forced into.
I know that the surfer's planet was something called Zenla, and I know that there was a Zenla language created for the story. Did you utilize any of the Zenla language in what the choir is singing?
Yes. Anytime that it is that bum, 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 bum. Yes, we are using their languages and they're talking, using her language for that, die with yours, whatever translations we were able to get from production, we would use those in that part of the story, which was, again, it's not something the average listener is going to know or realize, but I think it's just woven in there and it's part of the emotional sort of aspect of the music.
What are some of the things they're singing?
Well, the big thing is "Die with yours," right? What that blessing means, and that blessing is, may you die with the people you love, right? Basically, and it's so we're playing on riffs of that feeling in the lyrics themselves, and again using her own language. So this is not a language that exists other than on her planet, I guess you could say.
I thought that some of those Galactus surfer sequences had an almost kind of religioso kind of quality. And
oh, yeah. Well, we're talking about something, again, millennia, that has been going on for millennia. So the existence of the surfer, the existence of Galactus, it completely eclipses the existence of Earth, right? Earth is just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the lifetime that has been Galactus and then the surfer. Just a tiny lifetime, so we are just a small part of this massive, massive universe. I guess you could look at Galactus as the universe itself, and that's kind of scary when you think about it. And if you go deep down that path, it does make sense because you realize how alone we truly are, at least to our current knowledge, in this, whatever you want to call it, universe. I don't even know what to call what we are in. But it certainly seems like we're the only ones here, even though I want to believe that we're not.
Some of the, sort of dissonant strings and some of the wordless choir almost reminded me of some of the music that Kubrick used in 2001, that sort of liggity. Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if that was an inspiration.
Absolutely. I mean, 2001 is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that. And I know that for Matt, that was an inspiration for him as well in some of the visuals. So it felt, again, there's something about when you have this atonal quality to the music, whether it's the choir, whether it's the strings, whether it's any of the orchestral stuff, there's something about it that gives it a timelessness, and it roots it in this sort of vast universe that you have no comprehension of. Humans look for meaning in everything, whether they look for a sign, they want to understand what that sign is. They listen to music, they want to find the pattern in that music, but when you're kind of handed these atonal chapters of music, you can't grab onto anything that feels rhythmic or pattern. There's no pattern for you to get, and humans crave that. They need that. So it's a great way to kind of unsettle the audience and give them a feeling, but nothing to grab onto in terms of safety, for nothing that could ground them in it. And that's always fun to do, especially in a film like this. And it somehow sort of gives a breath to the whole story, if it's done right.
Talk a little bit about working with Matt Shakman. How sensitive is he to music, and how closely did you guys work?
I remember sending him the main theme, and he wrote me back immediately saying, I just listened to this for 10 times in a row on my run. And he goes, and I love it. He goes, I don't know how, this is our movie. This is our movie. And which made me feel very good, because you're always looking for that moment when people are saying, this is our movie. This music is our movie, because it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're like, it's almost our movie. It's kind of, let's bend it a little bit more this way. Then it could be our movie. This one was right off the bat, that's our movie. And I think a lot of that came from me and Matt talking quite a bit about the characters, about the film, and me kind of just getting a handle on what he was thinking. And we were both very lucky, because I feel like we aligned in that sense. It wasn't like he told me something and then I went like, whoa, that is so different than what I was thinking. We really lined up together in terms of the tone and what we wanted for the movie to feel like. So that was very helpful. And Matt is a great allower of experimentation. He's like, here, just do your thing. And he allowed me to go and do my thing. And there were times when I would write something and he'd be like, that's perfect. And then I would look at it later and go, I need to take that cue out because I don't think it's working. And he'd be like, no, I love that cue. And I'd be like, no, it doesn't work. It's ruining your movie. I promise you, we got to move it out. Or the opposite, would happen sometimes, where he'd be like, I'm not sure if this one works. I'd be like, yeah, but I think it does. And then when I'd see it in context, I'd go, oh yeah, you're right. We should. So it was a really good partnership in that sense, of constantly watching out for each other, because music can certainly be the thing that gets you thinking things you don't want to think. It's the thing that Brad Bird told me years ago when he hired me, was just like, your music could ruin my movie. And then, yes, of course. And I was like, that being my first film, I was terrified, but he was absolutely right, because if my music isn't in line with the storytelling of the film, audience is going to start thinking things we don't want them to think, or feeling things we don't want them to feel. And then that sort of separates everyone from the movie itself, and then it fails. So it's a very, very, you can't just write music and throw it into a movie. It doesn't work that way. You have to be so conscious of what it's doing at every moment. And is it truthful to that particular moment in the film based on what happened before and what's about to happen next? You can't look at things just in context. They have to be seen as a whole. And that's the thing you're constantly doing, watching the movie down, watching it again to make sure what you're doing is in line with everything. So it's a lot of work when you really come at it from that point of view. It's like you're constantly in there. It is absolutely not a job where you're just like, oh, I wrote that and that's done, I'm moving on. Like for me, I was there every day of the dub. I was there till the last final day. Like I wanted to make sure everything was lining in, because as sometimes films change, and they'll re-edit things and they'll come around. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't just chopping out important parts, that whatever it was, we were keeping the story intact on the music side to make sure that it supported what Matt wanted on the film side.
We were talking about a 101-piece orchestra and a 100-voice choir. What we didn't say was that you recorded at the legendary Abbey Road in London.
Yes.
What was that like?
Abbey Road I love recording there. It's one of my favorite studios on the planet. Anytime you walk in there, you feel the weight of the history of everything that was done there, from Elgar to the Beatles to, the Stones. You name it, everyone has recorded there. But in particular, the Beatles, they have done almost everything there, and you feel it. You can still feel that history there. So I do love it. And that Studio One, that big room they have, is just one of the best rooms for a large orchestra. I don't think you'd have a big enough room here in LA to put 101 players. You can do it, but it would be super tight. This was, you're putting it in and you still have room, so it's a beautiful room. I love it so much.
There must be more than 90 minutes of music in the movie. The album alone is 86. And I was wondering how long all that took to write and orchestrate and record.
There was a lot of music written for the film. Yes, for sure. And again, as I said, as the film changes, some scenes stay in, some don't stay in because it's better without, but just to hedge our bets, I was writing for everything because you never know. But that then causes you to go, okay, when we lose this, now I got to redo this other piece because, like we were saying before, the context changed for that particular scene now. Or if scene what was over here is now back here, suddenly has a different resonance. So you can't use the music you wrote for it over there. So you're now writing a new cue, which is fine with me because that's part of the puzzle of all of this, right? I don't sign up just to like drop the music down and say, see you, have fun. Like I like being a part of the development of the film and making sure that it is all what I'm doing is helping, so there was a lot of music written, over 2 hours, I'm sure. Yeah.
And how long did that all take?
I wrote the theme about a year and a month ago. I wrote the theme. And then there was, then I didn't do anything for the rest of I was working on other things. And then when the film kind of got to a place where I could start really diving in, I had a cut that was somewhat stable, I could jump in. So I would say February kind of got in, and then it was just boom, boom, going in, recording. And we were over at Abbey Road twice. I was there twice, went for a long stretch and then a shorter stretch. So there's a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of work. It was just probably, you talk about these big movies and sometimes they feel big in terms of the scope of the work. And other times they just feel like the other movies you've done, you do them and they're gone. They're fine. This was a big one. This felt like one of the biggest ones I've ever been a part of. I think because also there was this huge marketing for the film that was being coming out, which I thought was so brilliant what they did. They were so smart in so many ways. And we just got so lucky that Comic-Con forced us to create that music a year ago, and it became a part of sort of what the movie was as they were selling it. There was never a time when they were showing the movie without that theme. Now that was really special. And then you're letting the audience know confidently what you're doing. Here is the movie you're going to see. We're being confident about it. We're not hiding it behind rock songs and other things in trailers. We're not hiding it behind trailer music. This is our movie. Like it or not, this is what you're getting. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought that was pretty bold of Disney to do. And I was really, really thankful and to them for believing in it the way they did, because I think it made for a fun sort of stretch of time for the audience to wait for the movie and to keep getting these bits and pieces of it. And they were truly getting the tone of the film as opposed to the tone of a film you're trying to sell. You know what I mean?
And one of the other special things about this experience is that you got to conduct a big LA orchestra and choir at the premiere with a 10-minute suite even before they saw the movie. So again, it's sort of reminding people of what they've heard already, but what they're going to hear.
Yeah, to put you in a state of mind so that when that movie starts, you're already right there and you're ready to go and you're like, yep, I'm ready for it. And when they told me they wanted to do this at the premiere, of course, I was like thrilled. You don't ever get a chance to really do that. And you're usually just working, just getting the music done. But we already had so much of it prepared. It was okay. And what was so fun about that night was, we had some rehearsals and everything went great. And everything had to be sort of tied to streamers and punches because there were synths tracks and different things that we had to make sure we were staying in line with. So we did all of that, and the rehearsal all went great. And I remember I sat up there and I was just like, we were waiting for the show to start, right? And there was some issue with the house mics that weren't working, and they were doing some tech issues were going on. And I'm with backstage with the orchestra. We were a surprise. The audience had no idea we were there. I remember thinking to myself, you know what? All those rehearsals went great. I'm just going to enjoy this. I'm not even going to look at the score. I'm just going to conduct it and have fun. Look at these players, so many of which I have worked with for 25 years. That was really like an emotional thing, looking out at them before the film started and just feeling like, wow, we've done so many things together, all these incredible players here in LA. And then we started and the click broke. Everything went wrong. The monitor went dead. And it was all like just craziness all of a sudden. And it's so funny. There's a video up. And if you look at the beginning of it, you can see my face go, okay. And so I just had to wing it. And we did it. It was fine. We made it work. It was good, but it was not the relaxing, enjoyment that I thought I was going to have for those 10, 12 minutes that we ended up being up there. But we did it.
If you look at the video, you can't tell. So you pulled it off.
That's good. I was so worried. All I could think about when I was brought back to my seat was like, oh my God, how did that sound? How did that sound? So I was like, and everyone's like, shut up, it's fine. So
when a movie is in Dolby Atmos, like this one is, does that impact how you write or record or mix?
sometimes it does, absolutely, because if I know I'm doing like these crazy choir things or these atonal things, I may record those separately than the rest of the orchestra so that we can fill the room in a different way. So that kind of stuff can live somewhere very specific, and that's always fun to do with Atmos. Warren Brown, my engineer, loves mixing in Atmos. It's fun. He loves it. He has a whole, setup where he mixes. So yeah, we are absolutely thinking about those things. And there's certain times you want everything either up front or just sort of slightly around you, and other times when you just want everything around you sonically. And I think that's a fun thing for the audience because it's a way of changing up the storytelling on the fly as you're doing it. It could just happen, and then suddenly the audience feels like they're in a whole different space, which is really fun. I love it.
So a couple of questions about a couple of offbeat moments in the film.
Yeah.
Under the end titles is Andrea Datzman's song, Let Us Be Devoured, which seems like a little bit of satire or maybe music created by some pro-Galactus cult or something.
Yes.
Can you explain what that song is all about?
As you can imagine, there was a lot of stuff that went into this movie that never made it to the screen. That's just the way movie making is. Sometimes you get it and you make it and you're like, well, it's not working the way we thought, so some things come out. One of the things was this idea that some people on Earth were okay with this. Let's bring in Galactus. We're we get it. It's better if he just eats the whole thing and we start over. And there were these cults being formed around the world. And they do mention one of them. The Galactus cult was scaling Mount Everest. I think in one of the bits of the movie, you hear it on the news. And the idea was that they would all be singing this song, this one song that was written by, say, a Joan Baez type person who is, instead of, doing an anti-war song, they're doing the come get us. Yes, because the rest of the world is, we don't believe in him, whatever it was. There's always factions, right? So that was going to be a part of the film at some point. So when that sort of fell by the wayside, Andrea had already written this song and Matt had fallen in love with it as well. And everyone really liked it. And she did a beautiful job on it. So we thought, well, let's just put it in the end credits. And it was like at first the weirdest idea, but then when you're sitting through it and it comes on, it totally works. And you're just thinking, holy cow. And it gives you a chance to just sort of process a bit of like that storyline that you didn't really have a chance to think about in terms of, wow, what would this mean to the world if it was actually happening, right? And the way it lands at the end, it stops on that quote from Jack Kirby about putting a little bit of yourself into every character you create. There's just something very emotional about it that I love. And for me, and I know for Andrea, one of the fun things has just been to see, like, within a day of the movie coming out, there's all these people on Instagram or TikTok doing their own covers of the song, which was so fun and so sweet to see that people sort of got it. They understood it. And I feel like the people that really know the comics, it's a great Easter egg for them too. And it's not that it existed before, but you can read those lyrics and go, oh yeah, this feels real legit in that universe, especially coming out of the world in which the Fantastic Four was created in the 60s. It just felt like it just fit perfectly.
Were we once a shooting star that blazed the sky, shattered into tiny specks of dust, longing for some wholeness we cannot describe. We're here, starving for comfort, starving for peace. Let us be whole, let us be, let us be, let us be devoured. Let us be devoured.
And then there's the cartoon theme, the Fantastic Four Power Hour, which we see late in the film. I'm gathering that's also your doing.
I wrote that one. Yes, that was on me. Andrea wrote the other one. I did this one. And that's me. You can hear me going, "It's Red Ghost. It is Super Apes." That's me doing that. So that song had a different placement at one point as well. But the folks over at Titmouse, the animation company that did it, I mean, they did such a great job on this thing.
It looks totally legit.
Yeah, we were like, well, it's got to be then at the end of the film, and everyone, and it looks great, doesn't it? It just feels like they took one of the. So to write a Saturday morning theme song for a cartoon, it was always funny because Matt would be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about a song for this, or maybe a song for this or that," and I was always just like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes." I was like, "Absolutely yes," which was great. We were in constant communication through the whole film. As I was writing, I could just text him and we'd go back and forth real easily, or I would FaceTime him and let him hear things. It was really fun. But that one, for the longest time, the version that was in the movie was just me singing the whole thing. And it's horrible. It's terrible. I'm sure it'll get out someday. But and it's all the microphone. I did it so fast. Everything sounds terrible. But when we got to those real singers, I was like, "Oh, thank you. Okay, finally."
Change like cosmic rays from space. Now they save the human race. Sue Storm commands the light. Johnny's flames burn blazing bright. Ben is rocking the world with might. And represent science left and right. Join the fight and even the score. Get ready to watch Fantastic Four.
So looking back at the whole experience, what would you say was the biggest challenge about doing the Fantastic Four?
I think underestimating the amount of care and work and thoughtfulness that needed to go into every single bit of this in a way that felt so different from a lot of the other movies I've worked on. I didn't expect, like, I knew it was a big movie, but I never realized how big a movie it was going to become, and not in terms of, say, box office, but just in terms of, wow, this is not just another film that's coming out where you can kind of guess what it's going to be like. This is a whole different ballgame. And we were rolling the dice on so many things, in terms of, would the audience accept this tone? Would they accept this style of film for a Marvel movie? Would they accept? There's just endless questions, right? And I think this film went out into the world with a lot of us wondering, were they going to accept? There's always a little bit of anticipation, but I mean, or anxiety about when you let go of something like this. But for me, this one even more held a lot more, because I think I cared about it so much. I loved it so much. I wanted everyone else to love it too, and in our world today, it's so rare when everyone can kind of agree, at least a majority of people can agree on something. There's usually a lot of yelling about what they hate and not so much talk about what they like, So when this came out and did what it did, I felt a huge sense of relief, and I was so happy, because you work on these things so hard and so long. Sometimes it's hard to see what you're even doing anymore, So there's a point where you just have to, they rip it from your hands, and you just have to trust that the decisions you made are okay and that they worked. So I think I did not expect, and that for me was the biggest challenge, was sort of dealing with that emotional side of things. So it's not even a technical thing that was the challenge. It was just more of dealing with that.
Well, it must be very gratifying to have seen the reaction so far, and it does look like this is going to be one of the big movies of the year, and I think deservedly so. And I might say, just on a personal note, it's a terrific score.
Thank you.
Maybe one of the best things you've ever done. And it is thrilling to watch the movie and to listen to this, even apart from the film. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I know that you're a huge Fantastic Four fan, so I was also nervous about what you would think about it. I was just like, oh.
It is true that I did own Fantastic Four number 48 to 50, which is the Galactus story.
Right. Yep. Oh, really? Okay. There you go. You still have them?
No, sold them years ago for like $1 a piece, probably.
Oh, no. Well, I'm sure you can find them.
Anyway, Michael, thank you for being with us today. We're so grateful that you could fit us into your schedule and fill us in on how it all came about.
Anything for you, John. That is for sure. Thank you. I'm so happy you liked it. Thank you.
Many thanks to Michael Giacchino for joining us once again. And thanks as well to Jon Burlingame for conducting yet another excellent interview. And an extra special thanks to our friends at Marvel and Disney for helping put this conversation together. As I'm sure you've heard by now, the Fantastic Four First Steps is now playing in theaters, and I highly recommend checking it out in a Dolby Cinema as it is spectacular in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. We'll have links, as always, in our show notes. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you are subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube and our show notes, including links to those previous episodes with Michael Giacchino that I mentioned up top. If you're curious to know more about what we do at Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of the show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Marroquin. Thanks for joining us.